Hey, welcome back to Working Class Customs YouTube channel. Welcome back once again to Stable B. Again, our favorite place. It is still winter, so we're kind of stuck in here. That's why I got a jacket on. I am wearing shoes today, which might be a little different for some of you that have been on the channel before, but we're gonna call this the first episode of the Honda rebuild, the bring back to life. I don't know exactly what to call it, but we're here with our 2003 CBR 600 F4I today. It's not mine, this belongs to a friend of mine, but he said he was having some troubles getting it running and wants to go ride it, wants to maybe take it out to a racetrack. So I said, hey, give me the bike, I'll get it back up and going for you. And then that gives me some YouTube content for you guys, a little bit of journey with me. And hopefully we get another track rider out of it. And at the very least, I told him I gotta go take it out for at least a session on the track. So the journey of bringing this thing back to life, back to its former glory. It's a little old, I'll give you a quick show around here in a second, but back to its former glory, what she was back in the day. And then we get to take it out to the racetrack and see how an F4I would stand compared to the, the competition and what that would be as a track bike. So stick around, let's go ahead and get into it and see where we go. Real quick before we get started, if you're here, you're liking the content, as always, make sure you click the subscribe button down below, throw a like on the video, and then as we're going through this and many other episodes of this bike, please leave me some comments. Let me know. We'll be doing a little bit of troubleshooting, not necessarily tonight, but on the next videos to come. So if you're catching something that I'm not, please make that correction. And if not, if there's something that you got a question on, you're like, hey, what makes you think that? Leave a comment down below. I'll answer them. I love you guys' feedback and I love you guys' questions. Helps me learn, helps you learn, helps us grow as a community, which is the whole goal of this YouTube channel and our videos and whatnot. So again, I am not a certified mechanic. So anything I say, take that for granted. I have a little bit of experience. I've worked on some bikes. I've seen some things. I've got some mechanical knowledge, but I'm not certified. So everything I do in this video is purely just my brain. So take that for what it's worth. But with that being said, like I said, I really appreciate you guys' feedback, especially those of you out there that have more experience than me. And those of you that don't have as much experience, make sure you go read those comments, because some of those guys coming in, they save me time. They give me feedback that I might not have thought of before. So you guys could also possibly learn from that. Thanks. All right, so quick little bit of backstory. As I said, this is a buddy's bike. This is a 2003 Honda CBR 600 F4I. I believe that F4 is a inline 4 fuel injected F4I. That's what that part stands for. She's a little bit older. It's only a 600, but it was kind of back in that, like, if you watched her last video, the 600cc sport bike video, make sure you go check that out if you haven't seen it. But this is like right before that era that I love, but it's still a sweet era to be a part of. Pretty excited to work on it a little bit, see what it's all about. Also excited to take it out to a racetrack, see what it's all about out there. The price point of this bike when bought was $2,500. I believe it got a new ECU. Got that down here. Not sure about the price on that. I'll get that for you guys, because I think at the end of this, we're gonna go grand total price point, see what it takes to get it kind of all put back together and track worthy again, at least. The goal really is road worthy. That's what the owner wants to do with it. But I would like to make it track worthy. So we'll see what it takes to make this bike track worthy again and see what that kind of price point would be. Go get a used $2,500 bike, put some money into it, take it out to the racetrack and have some fun. Today, we're just gonna be tearing it down. One of the fairings, if you saw in the video, is missing off this side. I have it with me, don't have the bolts for it. So we're gonna get all the fairings torn off of here, get a new bolt kit for it, to get all this put on the correct way. The battery right now is dead, so that's why tonight's just gonna be a tear down video. I will get a new battery and we'll get everything reconnected up and kind of see what type of symptoms we're getting. I did put a jumper pack on it and I've got those symptoms in my head, but I really want to share those with you guys before we actually get started on working on it and figuring out what's wrong with it and getting it fixed and put back together. Let's go ahead and get some fairings torn off. All right. So the sweet part about these old Japanese bikes is that there's a lot of just Allen heads on here. So we got an Allen head here, there'll be some Allens underneath, and then this is already most of the way off, which is why we're getting that bolt kit. But we should be able to just get some Allens going and get most of the stuff torn off. There's not a lot of weird things to work with on these older bikes. So we'll go ahead and start with the tail section here. Get that taken off. Got the one Allen on this side, there'll be a matching one on the other side, and then some clips underneath on the back. And while I'm doing this, you guys let me know down in the comments what you think of this color scheme. This Repsol color scheme is pretty sweet. This one, when I pulled up to his house, I had zero expectation of like what it was actually going on and what it was gonna look like. So when I saw how clean it looked, I mean, there's some dirt, and we'll get that kind of cleaned up as we move along here. But when I saw how clean it looked, I was like, man, that's pretty sweet. So you guys let me know in the comments what you think of the Repsol colors. Gotta love these little clips. If you got any tips for those too, let me know. That's one of the reasons we're getting the new, I don't even know what they would call it, to be honest with you, but the new kit for all the fairing fasteners, fastener kit, there's the word. Because these clips, automotive clips, those guys, terrible. Terrible to work with. I absolutely hate it. They break all the time. I understand why we use them. They're lighter weight, whatever else. Don't damage bodywork, blah, 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 blah. But I hate them. So I do have a removal kit, removal tool kit. Even with that, sometimes it doesn't work out the best. So you guys let me know down in the comments what tips and tricks you have for messing with those guys. So we do have one here that is gonna want to be a problem. So this is looking like a custom fender eliminator piece, and the wiring on it, I don't know if you can see that. I'm probably just gonna go ahead and take that apart and then rewire it later, because I don't think the duct tape and screw-on wire connectors are gonna be the best thing for it. Let me know in the comments on that also, what you think. It's kind of an interesting thing to find in the back of the motorcycle. At least gonna get the duct tape off of here, see what it all looks like. I was informed by the owner that the brake lights weren't working. It does kind of seem like maybe they weren't wired properly. So, get this duct tape off of here and see what we can do with all of that. All right, to show you guys a little bit more of what I was talking about here, this is our wiring harness that comes back for the stock lights. So you're gonna have your running lights, your brake lights, your turn signals, all of those wires are gonna be in here, which means I'm gonna have to find a wiring diagram. Kinda already knew I would need to, but if you worked on vehicles or motorcycles or anything like that in general, you know that these little guys, not necessarily the best option, at least in my opinion. There are much better ways to connect some wires. Obviously these are already falling off, and then here's our, black duct tape, not electrical tape, duct tape. Also not the best option, and clearly those wire connectors didn't work very well because I wasn't even trying to take them apart and they were all falling apart. So we'll set this off to the side for now. We'll dig into that issue a little bit more later, but that's what we're dealing with right now. And we'll finish getting this tailpiece off. Tailpieces are always fun. This is a lot more like a not newer, but like a race fairing tailpiece, because it's all just kind of one section. So you kind of have to be careful with them, bend them ever so nicely. That's the best way I've ever found. They should slide out backwards, but this one's not really wanting to do that. So we're just gonna ever so nicely kind of scoot it, fangle it, get it around everything until we have a little bit more room with it. Then you can get it off of there a lot easier. And I always put the electronics in the best spot. There we go. There you go, tailpiece off. Your newer bikes, at least what I've worked on, the Gixxers over there, they've got like pieces all over. It's kind of cool to see that's all one piece, minus the tail underneath. Also a little annoying, but all one piece. Tailpiece off. All right, next up, gonna remove this other side fairing piece here, which It is only barely attached anymore with what feels like one little clip. I'm gonna hope that that's another Phillips head clip. Oh, what do you know it is? And that clip does not want to just screw out. So I'm gonna give it a little bit of pressure. Got a pry bar here. We're gonna give it a little bit of pressure behind it and hope that then we can use a screw and still get it out. No luck. No such luck today, so. Well, I guess we didn't need to. So with the other one not connected, the only thing that was even holding this on was up on the top. On the air duct, it was still clipped in. So we'll still have to get that disconnected, but for now it should be all right. All right, next up, we're gonna pull, I think the mirrors first. Yep, and then we can do the windshield separate. The windshield's held on by 6 little bolts there that look like 3mm Allens. So we'll go ahead and pull the windshield off, and then we'll grab the mirrors because the mirrors are probably holding that whole fairing on. It does look like maybe an aftermarket windshield, double bubble. I don't know if that came stock on these or not. You guys let me know down in the comments. I need to know a lot down in the comments. There's gonna be a lot of that going on tonight and throughout this build process. Because I, myself, am very unfamiliar with these. That's kind of why I'm excited about it. Get a little bit more familiar as we move along. And we got a windshield, just like that. All right, next up, I'm gonna pull the 2 mirrors off. I think that's feeling like that's gonna let that whole front end go. Kind of hoping. I grabbed a 4. Meant to grab a 5. There you go, 5mm Allen. Grab these mirrors off of here, and that should take that whole front fairing off. So we'll do the bottoms first, and then we'll convince the owner he doesn't even need mirrors. I'm gonna do a bar end. Bar ends always look better. Correct me if you want. Kind of curious on your guys' opinion on that. I like bar end mirrors on everything. I always, when I ride a bike that has full-size mirrors, I always wanted like the full sizes, and then I put bar ends on it, and I'm like, yeah, you can't see as much, but man, it just looks so much better. They were never meant to have these big mirrors. Not as racy, if you will. There's one mirror off. These ones aren't bad though, they move around quite a bit. Here's mirror number 2. I think that's gonna allow this whole fairing, front end, whatever you wanna call it, to pop off of here. Okay, so we do have something's not supposed to be there anymore on the one side. The other side is the correct one. Never mind, it doesn't. But there's a Phillips head house screw. Let's see if we can get a closer look at that. That guy holding that front fairing onto the intake. It's not the right bolt. So this is why we're getting the new fastener kit. If you guys are ever looking at your bike and you see any of these, that's not correct. Not what should be holding the bike together. But, you know, some people do interesting things. We'll have to see if the old one will take an original screw or not after that mess. So now you can kind of see that I have it just kind of sitting here on the fairing, front fender. Oh, sorry. Sitting there on the front fender. We're gonna have to disconnect some of these wires before we can pull this off. That is your headlight, turn signals, and then there's a couple diode, whatever you want to call those. I'm not an electrical guy. Those are up there. So we'll disconnect everything and then we'll get this front end pulled off. This whole thing's a mess. At least this one's electrical taped. A couple more of these little twisty connectors, but no duct tape here in the front. Like I said, this one's all electrical tape, so it looks like someone put in the aftermarket turn signals, they weren't necessarily plug and play, so they started cutting and splicing. So that's always fun to deal with. I don't know exactly how I'll move forward with that, but we'll figure something else out that's not twist-on electrical connectors and duct tape, at least. Anyway, there you have it. There's the front end removed. Next up, we're gonna pull off these intake covers. These are just covers. The actual intakes are up underneath. You can see them here. So these are just gonna be one screw here and on the other side. I'll probably do this off camera because you don't really need to see that. And then we'll see about getting the intakes off. And then I think we're gonna be done with fairings at that point. So there we have it. That is our stack of fairings down here and our defaired bike. Kinda looks okay as a naked bike. Let me know. We got our mess of a wiring harness up here that was, yeah, those went to turn signals. Those two are gonna go to turn signals. We might have to get new turn signals for it. Again, we are trying to get this back on the road. And there's one headlight plug and the other headlight plug is hiding out back here and wasn't even actually plugged in. When you're looking at used bikes, you can often find deals, but make sure you're looking through and ensuring that everything is put together kind of nicely. We'll leave this just kind of hanging out here for a little bit. I might remove it later to rebuild it, or might even be able to just get a whole new harness since so much of this is kind of ripped up, well, as you can see. So we'll see. They usually have a master plug up here. That's that guy. So all of this stuff is just lights. So I should be able to find a harness like this, hopefully pretty cheap, and just replace it all at that plug right there. Beyond that, that's the other side. These air intakes look like they're kind of in the intake box. You can see back in there a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this tank off, which also looks like it might have a cowl on it, which is kind of cool. It should protect the tank. We'll see what's underneath it. But we're gonna pull the tank off. I know I said I would get a battery and let you guys see what's going on with this. I will absolutely do that. But for now, I gotta pull this tank off and see what kind of other wiring nightmares we might have going on before I get that battery and try and mess with things. Got to clean up these wiring issues, especially this, because I'm not going to hook up a battery with a bunch of just exposed wires like that. They tried to hide that up with a bunch of those twisty guys, and I don't really want to live like that. So we're going to figure out what's going on back here. Same thing with the front, and then when we get the battery in, we can do a quick try and run it and see what kind of happens. All right, and again, the nice thing about the Japanese bikes is it's all just Allen heads, or supposed to be. Looks like in the back it's an Allen and a 10 or 12 mil bolt. But a lot of Allen heads, pretty easy to work with. These things are nice and cheap. That is nice. And if you're wondering why, I picked this up from the friend, I'm trying to not spend as much, spend as little money as possible. Wondering why I'm taking all the fairings off and taking it all apart. Big thing is, he mentioned the electrical issues, mentioned he didn't have the bolts for the one side fairing. So I was like, you know what, let me just take the whole thing apart, get at least a new fastener kit for the fairings so we can make sure they're put back on right. And then we'll kind of start there, start from the bottom, work our way up with what we have, because I don't know what's going on with everything on this bike. He mentioned brake lights weren't working. He mentioned it wouldn't run well, and a couple different things like that. So I want to get it not just working well, but as close to normal as possible while spending the least amount of money. That's kind of our goal. That is why we're taking everything off, start at ground zero, see where we're at, and move on from there. Love that. All right, we'll have to find that one in a second. A washer, a washer. Where are you, little washer? All right. Yep, there we go. Tank moved up out of the way. Have some more sweet aftermarket stuff back here. So, hopefully I can get you guys a look at that. Fuel line and electrical on the tanks is always a party. Come in a little closer. Gonna try and figure out how to, well, that doesn't give me as much access as I wanted. Figured you guys might like this contraption. I was trying to take the tank off, and I'll show you the lines once we get it off, kind of explain what's going on. Pulled a vent line off and it started spraying fuel. So, went and got a fuel tank, took the vent line off, hooked the can up to the tank. So in a little bit here, we'll open the cap and try and get as much out as possible. This is kind of what we're looking at with that. So here's our vent line. This is gonna be your fuel pump in here. your ascending unit and everything. So there's your main fuel line. This is a vent line, or it looks like a drain. It comes down to here. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but that's something. Figure that out in a bit. Anyway, I took that line off thinking it was just a vent and it wouldn't come out, because that's what I was used to on bikes, and it all just started spraying out. So I hooked the gas can up to it, and then I should be able to remove everything. Like, it's gonna get all the fuel out of there since it's on the bottom and obviously just open. So you should be able to remove everything after that and pull this gas tank off. Nice and easy. All right, so here's our fuel tank. These two are definitely vents. This line was the line that was leaking once I pulled the hose off. I'll show you what it looks like on the other side here in a second. And then this is your main fuel line. Once I got it drained down most of the way, I was able to disconnect this from the bike. I'll show you that in a second also. And weren't having too much out. There still is some fuel in here. Maybe, maybe not. Sounded like it when I took it off, but now that we're shaking it, not seeing a whole lot. So if we come over here, this is that one that was leaking. That goes to there, which is connected to a hose here. Not sure where that goes. We'll follow that in a little bit. But it's also connected to your fuel rail, right? So that's where your main line goes. On the other side of the fuel rail, there's a hole right there. So we're gonna try and keep this only off as long as we need to, so we don't get anything in there, but it is in the garage, so we should be pretty safe there. And then this should have been connected to one of the vents, and it was not, so we'll get that connected back up also. Anyway, next up, we're gonna pull this airbox off. When I was first doing some troubleshooting of my own, and I had the jumper box on there like I kind of talked about earlier, the throttle was acting a little weird, so I want to pull the airbox off and make sure that the throttle is in fact opening everything up. So we'll pull this top of the airbox off, see what it looks like inside. Probably need to clean the air filter, possibly replace it anyway. Always something that a lot of people forget about, especially on bikes, because you have to pull the tank up to get to it. So to pull the airbox off, you got a bunch of little Phillips head screws all around it. Well, at least that's how you pull the air filter cover off. The box doesn't necessarily come off that way. Usually there's a couple screws on the inside. This is pretty standard for every motorcycle that I've seen. Sport bike, I should specify sport bike for those of you in the audience that might not be sport bike people, might be working on something else. I don't know if this is gonna be the best representation for you, but that's usually what it looks like, is a bunch of screws going all the way around, just little Phillips heads. So we'll get all those removed, and we'll pull this thing off and see what it looks like inside. And there's also, looks like a air sensor. I'm not sure if that's mass airflow, temperature, or what, but it is plugged in up here. Go ahead and also pull that plug off, maybe. I love electrical plugs. I think we probably all share that feeling. At least those of us that are working on stuff. These things are always real fun. Shout out to Honda for designing a particularly nice one. That unplugged. And the airbox lid off. Look at that. What I was talking about the other day was, that happened the other day, was I was twisting the throttle and it twisted fine, but every time I would twist it, the RPM would just drop out. And then as I let off, it would come back, which told me it was probably a fuel pump problem. That's what I'm assuming. I'll let you guys kind of see that once we get a battery, like I said. But I wanted to open this up and make sure that it is in fact opening when we open, and shutting when we shut. I don't know how easily you can see that in there. That one's pretty good, but it is definitely opening the right way and shutting the right way, and it does spring back pretty well on its own. So we'll pull this air filter out of here. Apparently it's not screwed in, and it's actually not too bad looking, surprisingly, not too bad. So I'll probably still pull this airbox off another night, get a little bit deeper in there, check out all the wiring underneath, make sure everything's sound, but for tonight, I think this is where we're gonna leave it. We took everything pretty well apart. I'm gonna put the airbags back on top so that those aren't just open to the atmosphere. But once I get that airbox off, it'll also give me a good chance to get underneath there and clean everything up. This definitely has some cobwebs and dirt and grease and grime. And I mean, as you can kind of see, we got a little bit right there. So we'll be able to kind of clean everything up underneath there, make sure it's nice and clean. And then we can start putting back together, get that battery in, and kind of see what our symptoms are. All right, that's gonna finish this up for the night. We took off all the fairings on the bike, got the gas tank off, got the air filter box off, got a kind of first look at what everything's looking like. Definitely found some wiring issues, question mark. So that explains the light problems. That's a pretty easy fix. Well, pretty easy problem found. Like I said, I was told that the brake lights weren't working. Pretty clear that that was just the fact that they weren't connected at all. So good news there. They weren't connected. We can figure that out, get everything connected back up. We'll have lights back on when we put this back together. But that's the teardown episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you stick around. We're gonna keep these coming as I get this bike kind of taken care of and whatnot. As always, subscribe to the video, throw a like on the video, and stick around for the full story. Eventually we'll get this thing out on the track. Not sure when that'll be, sometime this year, but I'm looking forward to it. Haven't ridden a CBR before. This is an older one, so kind of a good test to see what an older CBR of this price range gets you. Please keep in mind that I'm trying to get this put back together for street legalness. If you're going to the track, lights wouldn't be a problem. So we could just cut all these wires, tape them up, make sure they weren't free, and we would be good to go if we were going to the track with it. But this is gonna go back on the street, so I wanna make sure that everything is working as it should be. As far as this being a track bike, for this price, kind of take those things into consideration as you're watching these. Thanks.